The murder of 4 young college students in the middle of the night while they slept, stabbed to death, while other people were in the house and seemingly didn't hear or witness the murders. It captivated the nation as a manhunt ensued over who this murderer might be. And as cable news covered this story quite a bit, at the crux of it, this ended up being an incredible achievement of law enforcement, of investigative skills. Now we have a suspect, we have an arrest, we have an extradition, and we're going to have a trial. Justice will be done in this case. So what really went on here, and how did the police do such a great job, even though they were getting criticized left and right by the media and by people of the community? Let's bring in our law enforcement analyst here, Rob O'Donnell, former homicide detective, New York Police Department, now an advocate for law enforcement nationwide. Hey, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the cops did a bang-up job with this mystery.
Yeah, they were excoriated through the press, through the family members, and through the local politicians in this area about the jobs they weren't doing. But when we find out, in fact, after everything's said and done, they did an excellent job. They did everything they were supposed to be doing. You know, I understand the public interest in this case. There were 4 lives taken in a college town. There wasn't a suspect to be had. There was a danger to the community still, regardless of what was said at first. I understand that public interest, but these investigations aren't supposed to happen in the public eye. They're supposed to happen in private. They're supposed to be happening confidentially, and that's the way they happen.
Yeah, it almost seems like some of the criticism was, well, the police aren't telling us anything. They're not giving us more information. And they aren't leaking anything to the media illegally. That's good, isn't it? I mean, if they give information, that gives this murderer at large a paper trail as to what they should be covering up or what they should be running from.
Yeah, I mean, the matching DNA from this suspect wasn't obtained from his until they got his garbage in Pennsylvania on December 27th. They already had DNA from the scene on the knife sheath. They already had tracking on his cell phone and video of the vehicle going back and forth as far back as August of 2022, surveilling this house. But they did not get the matching DNA until December 27th. And if they would have put this information out there, if they would have put tipped the criminal in this case off, he would have been more careful. They already said he was taking his garbage out with rubber gloves on. So, those are the reasons why we don't let out all the details.
Yeah, and sadly, I mean, I've sort of raised this issue. I want to get into some of the details of the crime as well, but I raised this sort of overarching issue because sadly, in many jurisdictions, we don't see that. We see sloppy behavior sometimes from law enforcement, or I don't know that it's law enforcement, or maybe people on the inside in the know. It could be in the DA's office, who knows? And they do talk to the media. They do leak information. It really undermines their efforts, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot of times it's police leadership looking to get their face in the press. A lot of times it's politicians trying to appease the public. It's usually not the rank and file that are involved in the investigation because they know how much there is to lose if this information gets out there.
So some of the details here that we're learning now about this suspect, if you can give us sort of an umbrella look, specifically about what appears to be his own sort of fascination with this kind of crime, and the fact that he was sort of, from a psychological aspect, studying murders and homicides.
Yeah, I mean, here's someone who's very, very well versed in criminology. He was in a doctorate's program. He had to get his bachelor's and master's in criminology here in Pennsylvania. Went to the University of Washington, where he was pursuing his doctorate's degree in criminology. So he is well versed in crime, studying criminals, their psychology behind it, the evidence that's behind it. So, and some of his research that he's done has come out prior to this now that shows, he was very in depth in looking into the minds of criminals like this.
Yeah. And is this often, I mean, is this an outlier, or is this the kind of thing that law enforcement, you kind of have to sort of cast a wide net and look at all possibilities? But it doesn't seem like, I mean, this almost sounds like a Hannibal Lecter type of guy.
Yeah, I mean, when this first happened, I made a tweet, a couple of days after the murder. I said, this is either someone who had a physical, the wounds were so violent, the attack was so violent and so aggressive that this is something not from a normal break-in gone wrong or a crime. This is someone who had a personal relationship or had some kind of psychosis where he fixated on one or more of these individuals. And it turned out to be the latter of that case, it appears.
I would like to talk about how the media covered this. Whenever there's a missing woman, media always gets criticized, and I think sometimes rightly so. if the missing woman is a young girl who has a lot of pictures out there on social media that can be used and shown, and there's kind of this, I don't know, prurient, almost a bizarre fascination with the missing young girl, now a victim. And that was the case here. They weren't missing, but 3 of the 4 victims were young women with a lot of pictures on social media. And I feel like we can do better. I feel like this is something that we shouldn't continue to fixate on. This is the kind of thing that happens a lot, sadly, and it becomes a cause celeb.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons so much in the cable news and across the nation grabbed onto this. We have murders in our inner cities every day, multiple people being shot at a time. So this is not something new. It's just here was something that they considered newsworthy because they were, say, four pretty young people, and three women and the guy. They were all good looking, young, athletic. That's the story that was out there. And I also think that the 2 surviving girls, the one of them is getting criticism now because she apparently now became face to face with the murderer just after he committed the murder. He was wearing some kind of mask, a surgical mask that was covering his nose and eyes. He was dressed all in black, and she froze in fear and closed her door. Well, here was a house with 5 very pretty young ladies in college. It was known as a party house. I'm sure people were in and out. I'm sure there was a lot of drama in this house prior to this incident happening in the years they were there. There was a lot of parties. Speaking to college-age kids, you and I both have college-age kids, they don't want to get involved in that drama. You come face to face, there's probably a lot of arguments out there.
Right.
Dressing all in black in the Northwest of the United States is not, that grunge look is in. That's a common dress.
Yeah.
Wearing a mask because of COVID, is a common thing. So I think this girl's really getting beat up to where, she said she froze, maybe because she just didn't want to get involved in their friend's argument or the fight for the boyfriend-girlfriend that she didn't know.
Yeah.
I think she's getting a lot of criticism where it doesn't need to be.
I agree. I was going to mention the fact that you and I both have college-age daughters, and I think that's another reason why this story, I think, captured so many people's fascination and sort of became a thing because people our age, we can see this story. And, I saw some of those pictures, Instagram pictures of these young women, and it's like, that could have been my daughter. And so what can we do? I mean, what should we do to try to protect our kids? Because even when they're 21, 22, 23, we still want to protect our kids. But honestly, there isn't a lot we can do other than allow them to defend themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can give our kids the skill set that they need to have that situational awareness of who's around them. Not that these kids did anything wrong. This guy, obviously went into the house, obviously surveilled the house. Like I said, his cell phone pings puts him at that house at least 12 times, either late at night or early in the morning, all the way back to August of 2022. He was obviously casing them. He was obviously fixated on them for some reason and looking, for an opportunity to do something like this.
Yeah.
So, you really can't prepare for something like that because who prepares for some psycho to become fixated on them and surveil them behind the scenes for that many amount of months and then come in and do such a gruesome crime? Finally,
we're purposely not showing pictures of these victims, partly because of the reasons we've laid out here. And we're not mentioning the name of this suspect because there is this sort of bizarre, weird notoriety aspect of it too. When somebody is arrested for this sort of thing, they almost become, in a weird way, this fascinating figure, and that feeds into this dementia.
Yeah, I mean, here's someone who obviously got so involved in his studies, he wanted to take it to the next step. There's something obviously not right with this guy's brain to do something like that. So why he did it, hopefully we find out. Hopefully he just breaks and confesses this is why he did it, to give the family some answers. But, only time will tell. And I'm sure we only know a small portion. The stuff that was in the probable cause affidavit was just enough to arrest him at this time. I'm sure they have a lot more that we'll learn in the future.
Yeah. One last thing here. You mentioned he was arrested in Pennsylvania. Idaho's involved. State of Washington's involved. Really quite a feat for law enforcement to bring it back to that topic in terms of the cooperation across jurisdictions. That doesn't always go so smoothly, does it?
No, not at all. And like I said, the police in this case did an excellent job. They looked at over 22,000 white Hyundai Elantras. A Washington State police officer, Washington State University police officer, found out that they did have a Pennsylvania plate on this one white Elantra, looked at it. When he went to go find the vehicle, it had Washington plates because 5 days after the murder, the suspect changed his registration from Pennsylvania to Washington.
Wow. It's Rob O'Donnell. Thanks for letting us praise law enforcement tonight. More to come on Salem News Channel.